Subscribe to Man Told for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. I came home on our 10th wedding anniversary, only to find Emily celebrating with another man. Through the living room window, I saw her in his arms. It wasn't a polite hug. It wasn't an accident. It was the kind of embrace that belonged to people who had been each other's for a long time. Slow, tight, and unafraid of being seen. I didn't go in. I just stood there in the yard, still holding a bouquet of red roses. The petals swayed in the cold wind, just like the uneasy, shaky feeling in my chest. My shoe brushed against the keys in my coat pocket. They slipped out, hitting the steps with a sharp, metallic clang. In the still night, it sounded like a gunshot. Both of them turned. Emily saw me, that look in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was annoyance, as if I had ruined a moment that mattered to her. The man let her go and stepped toward the door. I didn't wait for him to speak. I turned away and walked off, each slow step echoing the sound of something breaking inside me. I thought I was coming home to give Emily the roses, the cruise tickets, and my gratitude for 10 years together. But that night, what I brought home was the image of my wife in another man's arms. If I had walked in, maybe things would have turned out differently. But I chose to turn away, because I knew what I had just seen was only the surface of something far worse. That night, I didn't lose my wife. I lost my whole life's worth of trust. And I knew, from that moment on, there was no way back. My name's Sean, 37, construction engineer. I was born in Texas, where summers burn your skin dry and winters are cold enough to turn your breath into smoke. Life here doesn't rush. Neither do people. I grew up believing in 3 things. Work hard, keep your word, and protect your family at all costs. 12 years ago, I met Emily. That day, my company was sponsoring the renovation of a playground for an elementary school. Emily was a teacher there. She wore a light blue dress, her hair tied back, and a smile that made you want to stay just a little longer. We talked for less than 10 minutes, but as I walked away, I knew, if I was lucky, this would be the woman I'd hold hands with for the rest of my life. A year and a half later, we got married. Small wedding, warm and simple. My father put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Keep her happy, son, and you'll never be lonely." I believed that, completely. The first years of marriage went by peacefully. I worked late at a big construction firm, but I always tried to be home for dinner. Emily would wait for me in the kitchen, or curl up on the sofa with a book. We'd share the little details of our day. 3 years later, Jack, our son, was born. The first time I held him, his tiny hand wrapped tight around my finger. Emily looked at me and smiled, tired but happy. In that moment, I thought, this is the family I'll protect for the rest of my life. Some moments you carry forever. Like the night Jack had a high fever. I held him from 2 a.m. until sunrise. Emily made coffee for me, dark circles under her eyes, and whispered, "I'm lucky to have you." Or the rainy afternoon at the job site, when Emily suddenly showed up in an oversized raincoat, carrying a hot lunch. She said, "I don't want you eating cold sandwiches anymore." That was the Emily I loved, the woman who made me feel like the luckiest man alive. Sundays were for pancakes. Winters, we decorated the Christmas tree together. Summers, I'd take Jack fishing while Emily read by the shore. Every anniversary, I brought her red roses and dinner at her favorite restaurant. If you've ever felt like you had happiness in the palm of your hand, you'll understand how I felt back then. I was certain nothing could break this family. I just didn't know when. That happiness had started to crack. If you asked me when our marriage was at its best, I'd say, when Jack had just started first grade. Emily still smiled every time I walked in the door. The house always smelled like fresh-baked bread, and I thought it would stay that way forever. But sometimes, change doesn't hit like a storm. It starts as a hairline fracture, slipping through the days, until one day you realize you're staring at a gap too wide to fill. Emily started getting busier. She said the school had more work, urgent meetings, special lessons to prepare. I believed her. She'd always been devoted to her students. But those late meetings started piling up. Some nights, I'd call to ask what she wanted for dinner. Line busy. I'd text, no reply. And then, past 10 p.m., she'd walk through the door. A new perfume trailed in with her, sweet, unfamiliar, and not from this house. "Where were you?" I asked, Meeting ran longer than expected, she said. Voice tired, eyes avoiding mine. I nodded. But something inside shifted. One day, I came home early. 2 sets of dishes in the sink. Her favorite ice cream tub, half gone. Jack, playing on the floor, said casually, "Mom had dinner with a man yesterday. Not you. He bought me a robot." I froze. Smiled it off in front of my son. But that night, over dinner, Emily barely spoke. I tried. "How about tomorrow we take Jack to the park?" "We'll see." "I'm busy," she said, eyes fixed on her phone. Have you ever asked your wife where she's been? And all you get is a short, flat answer. If you have, you'll know exactly how I felt. Another night, I came home earlier than usual. The house was dark. Dinner was on the table, cold. I sat there, eating alone in silence. The chair across from me, empty. Every sound of the knife hitting the plate felt loud enough to scrape your skin. I looked around the room. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall. Emily leaning on my shoulder, her smile bright as sunlight. But it felt like I was looking at someone else's story. Not ours. Not anymore. I still wanted to believe I was wrong. Sometimes, trust is the only thing you've got left to hold on to. But deep down, I knew it was also the very thing, keeping the pain alive. That night, I found the steak receipt in the trash, buried under milk cartons and cookie wrappers. 2 steaks, 2 glasses of red wine. The date matched the night I'd been stuck at a job site outside the city. The waiter's note, table by the window. The paper was damp in my hand. Every number on it felt like a needle pressing straight into my chest. I sat at the kitchen table, the receipt in front of me. Looking at it, I wanted to believe it was just a work dinner. But I also felt like an idiot, trying to excuse something I already knew was wrong. Emily came home close to 10. The same sweet, unfamiliar perfume filled the air. "Eat something," I said, setting a bowl of soup in front of her. "I'm not hungry. Something happened at school." "No, just a lot of work." "Sean, don't blow things out of proportion." I wanted to tell her, I'm not blowing things out of proportion. I'm trying to hold on to whatever's left. But I stayed quiet, because I knew some answers would never be given willingly. In the days after, I started writing down her arrival times. Monday, 8:35, Wednesday, 9:10. Friday, no answer from 6:40 to 9:02. The numbers were cold on paper, but in my mind, they formed a crack that was getting wider. One afternoon, I came home early. 2 sets of dishes in the sink. Her favorite ice cream tub, half gone. Jack, building Lego, said casually, "Mom had dinner with a man yesterday. Not you. He bought me a robot." I froze, smiled it off. That night, over dinner, I tried, "How about tomorrow we take Jack to the park?" "We'll see. I'm busy," she said, eyes still on her phone. If you've ever asked your partner something small, and all you got back was a short, flat answer, you'll know how I felt. Like reaching out your hand, only for the other person to put nothing in it. Saturday afternoon, Emily said she was meeting A at the education center to finalize a sponsorship. I'd never heard the name before. I offered to drive her. She refused. The door closed. The house went quiet. I grabbed my coat and drove in the direction she'd said. Not to follow her, just to see what north side of the city looked like. Streetlights came on. I stopped across from Wyatt Square, Education and Community Center. They really were hosting a teacher workshop. Light rain tapped on the windshield, blurring the yellow glow of the lamps. 15 minutes? 20. Then a black sedan pulled up. The back door opened. Emily stepped out, wearing the dress she only wore to parties. She leaned in, said something to the man inside. All I saw was a man's hand pulling the door shut before the car drove away. Emily stood there a moment, watching it go, then walked inside. I stayed where I was, my hands gripping the wheel until they went numb. In the quiet of the car, I could hear my own breath, mixing with the sound of rain tapping the glass. I didn't go in. I drove home before she did. Red light after red light. One question looping in my head. Who is A? That night, while she was in the shower, I hung her coat up. In the pocket, a folded business card. Embossed letters on the front, A.M. On the back, scribbled, 7:30, room 214. My heart pounded. Like the door to that room was waiting for me to open it. No logo, no company name, just 3 cold letters. Then memory kicked in. A familiar voice, low and rough. The Monday morning meeting chime. Someone calling my name at the job site. I dialed a number I'd known for years. Voicemail. You've reached a... I froze. That voice was too familiar. And if I wasn't wrong, he worked at my company. If there's anything worse than suspecting the person you love, it's when the face in your suspicion belongs to someone you already know. And that morning, the name in my head was Andrew Miller. A.M. Head of Project Operations. The man I'd trusted to watch my back on site. The man I'd once invited to dinner with my family. The man who shook my hand and said, "We're a team." Now, those 3 letters sat on a card in Emily's coat pocket. Sunday morning, I made coffee and sat at the table. Emily walked in, hair damp, a different shampoo scent. "Sleep well?" I asked. "Yeah." "Fine," she said, avoiding my eyes, pouring herself coffee. Didn't ask if I wanted more. "How was the meeting yesterday?" "Good." "Who's A?" A short pause. "The sponsorship lead." "Why?" "Just curious," I said. But inside, the question kept drilling deeper. If it's just sponsorship, why hide it? That afternoon, Emily said she was going shopping. I offered to go with her. "You stay with Jack." "I'll be quick." The door closed. 3 p.m. I waited 15 minutes. Then I put on my coat. The streets were quiet. When I turned down a narrow lane, I saw her silver sedan parked outside a cafe with big glass windows. Inside, under warm yellow light, she sat across from Andrew. They leaned in toward each other. Emily smiled, soft and warm, a smile I hadn't seen from her in months. Andrew said something in that low voice, and she covered her mouth, laughing quietly. I stood outside, separated by glass, the sound of a spoon stirring in a cup, the door opening and closing, and the pounding in my chest. Late sunlight caught the water glass between them, casting a glimmer of light, like a thread tying them together, one I couldn't step through. This was the man who'd stood beside me when we signed the biggest deal of my career, the man I trusted, and today he sat across from my wife. I got home before Emily did. She walked in with grocery bags, hugged Jack, smiling like nothing had happened. I set the table. "Find anything good at the store?" I asked. "Yeah, enough for the week," she said, eyes still on her phone. I looked her in the eye. "I saw you at the cafe this afternoon." She froze, then smirked. "You followed me." I call it making sure I'm not imagining things. Andrew's just helping me with sponsorships. That's all. That's all. But you wore that dress. My voice was quiet, but every word heavy as stone. Emily said nothing. She bent down, unpacking the bags. The conversation ended there, not with an explanation, but with a thicker silence than before. That night, I sat alone in the living room. On the table, the steak receipt, the A note, the business card, 3 pieces of a puzzle, and I was afraid they were already fitting together into a picture I didn't want to see. If you've ever been caught between wanting to know the truth and wanting it to stay a secret forever, you'll understand why I sat there in the dark, lights still on, unable to sleep. I heard Emily's laughter coming from the study, not the familiar kind. This one was lighter, softer, and distant. When I walked over, the door was slightly ajar. She was on the phone, staring out the window. "Okay, I'll try to make it work." "No, don't worry." Her voice was low, warm, so different it caught me off guard. I knocked. She flinched and hung up. "Just a call with a coworker," she said, like the answer had been rehearsed. I smiled, but inside, her words, "Don't worry," kept echoing. Who was she reassuring? And why? Wasn't it me? After that, little details began lining up. Phone always face down. New password. Longer showers. Minutes spent in front of the mirror. Tuesday morning, looking for a jacket, I dropped an envelope from her drawer. Inside, 2 jazz concert tickets, dated the 14th. The paper still smelled of fresh ink. Holding them felt like holding an invitation. That wasn't for me. I sat on the bed. In my mind, I could see it clearly. Emily in those seats, stage lights brushing across her face. Beside her, not me. Andrew, leaning in, whispering. Music blending with their laughter. That night, I asked, "Got any plans for the 14th? She glanced at me for a second. "Probably just staying in." I could have pulled the tickets out right there, but I didn't. Maybe because I knew, once the curtain falls, there's no pretending anymore. That weekend, Emily came home late. I was clearing the table when she walked in with a box of my favorite pastries. "I remembered you like these," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Another night, After putting Jack to bed early, I stepped into the living room. Emily sat on the sofa, laptop open. On the screen, Andrew's face, clear as day in a video call. I stood in the kitchen doorway, silent. She didn't know I was there. Andrew said something. Emily smiled softly. Then they just looked at each other, long enough for time to stop. When I walked in, she jumped, snapped the laptop shut. "Who were you talking to?" "Andrew. About the sponsorship project." "This late?" "The partner's in another time zone." Don't start with baseless suspicion. Baseless suspicion. The words felt like a dull blade, not cutting clean, but digging deep. That night, I went out to the balcony. The city stretched below me, glowing bright, but I felt stuck in some cold, shadowed corner. In my pocket, the 2 concert tickets burned against the fabric. I thought about showing up that night, no warning, sitting in the back row, and seeing who would take the empty seat beside her. My phone buzzed. The screen lit the dark. A text from an unknown number. "If you want the truth, be at the Grandview Hotel, room 407, the night of the 14th. No name, no explanation. Just a single line, white on black. The wind outside suddenly felt far away. All I could hear were 2 words in my head. The 14th. Rain pounded the windshield like 1,000 urgent fingers. The clock read 7:48. I was on my way to the Grandview. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. In my head, the message repeated, "Room 407. The 14th? 3 hours earlier?" Emily stood in front of the mirror, wearing an off-shoulder black dress, hair pinned up, silver bracelet catching the light. "Have dinner with Jack, okay? I'll be back late." I nodded, watched her walk out, the click of her heels fading down the hall. When the door closed, I sat still for a minute. Jack was busy building a Lego castle. I kissed his head, whispered, "I'll be home soon." The Grandview lobby was warm and polished, but it made me feel cold. The smell of orchids mixed with polished wood pressed in on me. The elevator opened on the 4th floor. Red carpet, dim yellow lights. 401, 403, 405, and then 407. I stood at the door. My heart thudded against my ribs. I was about to knock when footsteps echoed down the hall. I stepped back into the shadows. Emily. She stopped in front of 407, eyes scanning the hallway. Her hand loosened on her purse strap. 3 soft knocks. The door opened. Andrew, white shirt, top 2 buttons undone, glass of wine in his hand. He smiled, tilted his head like he'd been waiting. Their eyes met, just for a second, but enough for me to see that light, the one I thought had long gone from her eyes. He touched her back, guiding her inside. The door closed. The lock clicked, blending with the sound of rain. I once wished him happiness on his wedding day. Now, he was taking the only thing I wanted to keep. I stood there, lungs feeling like they'd been emptied. The anger didn't crash in like I expected. It spread slowly, a cold void filling every part of me. I backed away, stepped into the elevator. As it descended, I could still hear the lock on room 407. Outside, the rain hit my face. I sat in my car, lights off, eyes fixed on the 4th floor. The curtains in 407 were drawn, but a thin gap spilled faint yellow light. I was about to start the engine, but my hands wouldn't move. The curtains shifted, as if someone had just touched them. A shadow appeared behind the fabric. Then it was gone. I stayed there, rain hammering the roof, waiting for when that door would open again. The rain had stopped, but inside me, a storm was still raging. I stepped out of the car. Each step toward the Grandview felt like sinking into thick mud. 4th floor. Red carpet down the hall. Yellow light stretching my shadow. Long, unsteady. I stopped in front of 407. Took a deep breath. Knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. I was about to knock harder when the lock turned. The door cracked open, and I caught a glimpse of someone. Not Andrew. Slipping past inside, fast as a gust of wind. Just the hem of a black dress disappearing toward the window at the back. Then Andrew appeared, leaning on the doorframe. White shirt half buttoned, the faint scent of wine drifting out. Sean. This late? Who are you looking for? Where's Emily? My voice heavy as lead. He shrugged, half smile, half challenge. Come in. Inside, a small table, a bottle of wine, 2 glasses still smudged with lipstick. On the chair, Emily's scarf draped loosely. I pointed. Hers. Andrew poured wine, set a glass in front of me. Sit. We need to talk. I didn't sit. Talk about what? Explain why my wife just walked out of here. He sighed, pulled out his phone, hit play on a recording. Emily's voice filled the room. Shaky. I don't know how to tell him. Sean isn't the man I married anymore. I feel empty. I just need someone to listen. My hands trembled. My throat tightened, like someone was squeezing it shut. This was her way of finding someone to listen. In a hotel room. With him, Andrew looked straight at me. We didn't sleep together, Sean. But if you don't talk to her, then sooner or later. He left the rest unsaid. I stepped closer, my face inches from his. If you care about her, stay out of her life. He didn't move back, just gave a thin smile. Don't let your silence kill this marriage. I turned to leave. My hand brushed the scarf, still warm. Out in the hallway, I paused. Somewhere in the distance, footsteps echoed, light and steady. I couldn't tell if it was Emily or just someone passing by, but each step landed in my head like a hammer. I didn't turn back. I walked out of the Grandview, carrying a warm scarf and a heart that was cooling fast. The orchid scent in the lobby now felt like something pressing hard into my chest. Crossing toward my car, I saw a woman coming quickly out of a side alley, the one staff usually used. Hair pinned up. Black dress? Emily. My voice carried into the wet night. She froze. 1 second. 2. Then turned. The streetlight fell across her rain-damp face, and her eyes went straight to the scarf in my hand. You followed me. Not angry, not surprised. Just tired. I came to find you. To ask why? I tried to keep my voice steady. It cracked anyway. We stood under a narrow awning, the rain falling between us like an invisible line. Emily met my eyes. You're my husband, but for a long time now, I haven't felt like your wife. The words cut straight through me. My knuckles went white around the scarf. So you went to Andrew? No. I went to someone who made me remember that I still exist. I laughed, but it caught in my throat. And existing means being in a hotel room with him. She shook her head. A drop, rain, or a tear slid down her cheek. I couldn't tell which. I haven't cheated on you. Yet. But if we keep going like this, that day will come. Soon. I stepped closer. Only a breath between us. What do I have to do? She said softly. Not just you, us. But I'm not sure. We have enough time. Emily stepped back, turned, and walked into the rain. I stood there, crushing the scarf in my fist, like I could squeeze the distance out of it. I looked up toward room 407. The curtains were still closed. But when the light flickered for a second, I saw a figure by the window. Slender, long hair. Not Andrew. The light went out. The curtains fell shut. I didn't know what I'd just seen. Only that tonight, I wouldn't be sleeping. The sound of a hairdryer upstairs drowned out the ticking of the wall clock. I sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee, eyes drifting to the staircase. Emily came down. Her hair was still damp, a hint of jasmine shampoo in the air, sweeter than the woody scent she'd always used. The silver bracelet from yesterday, gone. Good morning. Her voice calm, as if last night had never happened. I just nodded, watching every movement, opening the fridge, pouring milk, setting the glass down. Everything done with a certain caution, like someone performing for an audience. Jack ran down and hugged her. Emily bent to kiss him, smiling bright. I looked at them, warmth in my chest, and a sharp ache right beside it. This woman, who was she with at the hotel last night? Emily turned. I'll take Jack to school today, then stop by the market. The words left me before I could stop them. The market, or the Grandview. She froze. Her eyes sharpened, like a knife. If you've decided not to trust me, then no matter where I go, you'll find a way to doubt it. We walked Jack to the car. Before leaving, Emily leaned to the window, looking straight at me. Sean, do you want to save this or end it? There's no in between. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word felt like a verdict. The car pulled away. I stood there, cold wind on my back, sweat dampening my shirt. At the office, I couldn't focus. That shadow behind the curtains of 407 kept replaying in my mind, like a clip I couldn't skip. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. You don't know everything. Underneath was a blurry photo. The hallway at the Grandview. Door 407 cracked open. A slender figure standing just behind it. A second message. Tomorrow night. 9 p.m. 407. I stared at the screen. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was someone moving me around like a pawn. That night, I barely slept. Wind rattled the windows. A faint clatter came from downstairs. I sat up, walked into the hall, listening. The front door shifted, then went still. I stood there, gripping the banister, and saw again the image of Emily walking out from the alley behind the Grandview. The next morning, I stayed home. Emily came into the kitchen, hair tied back, holding a cup of tea. "Not going to work?" she asked, her tone casual. "I need to stay here, think about some things." I didn't take my eyes off her face. We kept our distance all morning, each step widening the space between us. Near noon, as she grabbed her bag to leave, I blocked the doorway. "Where are you going?" "To the place you were thinking about last night," she said, the corner of her mouth lifting. Half challenge. I swallowed, keeping my voice steady. "If you're not home tomorrow night, we're done." She said nothing, just brushed past me, leaving behind that sweet jasmine scent, thick, almost choking. That afternoon, another message from the unknown number. "You want to know who was behind the curtain? Come, or never know." Attached was a new photo. The same Grandview hallway, but this time the door to 407 was open wider. The figure inside had their head tilted, as if looking right toward the camera. That night, passing the bedroom, I saw light spilling from the crack in the door. Emily sat on the bed, holding a printed photo. A small beach in Florida, the one we'd visited when we were newlyweds. But in the picture, she wasn't with me. The man beside her was Andrew. She looked up, meeting my eyes without flinching. "Anything you want to say?" I found no words. The scene in the photo drowned every good memory I had left. I only said, "Be home tomorrow night." She gave a faint smile, and it sent a chill through me. "Are you sure you want the answer?" The door closed. I stood outside, listening to the wind cut through the window frame. And one thought echoed in my mind. Some truths, once known, leave no way back. The next night, 10 minutes to 9, I was already standing in front of the Grandview. Light rain fell, turning the streetlights into blurred streaks across the pavement. I looked up at the 4th floor. The curtains in room 407 shifted slightly. The last message from the unknown number still glowed on my phone. "If you don't come, you'll never know." I walked into the lobby, gave the receptionist a small nod, and pressed the elevator button. The hallway on the 4th floor was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat. At the door to 407, I pressed my ear against it. A soft laugh, Emily's voice. I was sure. I turned the handle. Locked. A brief silence. Then footsteps. The door cracked open just enough. My eyes met those of a woman I'd never seen before. Red lips, wet hair. Behind her, on the table, a wedding ring identical to Emily's, next to a half-finished glass of wine. She smiled. "You're later than I thought." The door closed, the lock clicking shut, cold and final. I turned back down the hallway. At the far end, Andrew appeared, holding a paper bag. He froze when he saw me, his eyes a mix of surprise and fear. "Sean, you?" I shook my head. "No questions." And he didn't offer any answers. When I got home, Emily was at the dining table, reading. She looked up and smiled, as if I'd just come back from the grocery store. "Where were you this late?" "I went looking for an answer." She tilted her head. "And did you find it?" I thought of the ring on the table in room 407. Then I thought of all the mornings she made breakfast for me and Jack. Maybe the answer had been in front of me all along. But I knew, once I said it out loud, there'd be nothing left to hold on to. I took a deep breath. Maybe I don't need to know everything. Emily closed her book, her eyes calm, but the corner of her mouth lifted. Half relief, half challenge. We sat there, listening to the rain outside the porch. No one spoke of that night again. Now, looking back, I don't know if I missed the truth, or spared myself a wound that would never heal. Trust is like a candle in a dark room. Once the wind blows through, you can light it again, but it will never feel as warm as before. And sometimes, choosing to stay in the dark is the easier choice.